welcome to Half the Battle.
Last week, during my Fort Knox review, I briefly talked about the Posse Comitatus Act, and I made a short remark implying G.I. Joe was in violation of it.
But is that true?
And does this mean that the G.I. Joe team is operating illegally, and they should all be thrown in jail, as well as anybody who gave them their orders? It seems an open and shut case, right?
Well, the truth is a lot more murky than that.
But before we get into the G.I. Joe team itself, let's first take a look at Cobra. Cobra is defined as a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world. I'd call them a domestic militia, since Cobra Commander is an American himself. Except in the movie where he's part of a race of bug people. But I'm ignoring that.
In fact, we should all ignore that.
In the real world, such an organization would be dealt with by the FBI and the Bureau for Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. That's a department that's not nearly as fun as the name suggests, by the way. But in the Joe universe, they are fought by an elite military team. So, how do they get around to legal quagmire?
Now, you may say, but Timmer, you handsome rogue, it's just a toy line. Do we really need to analyze this? To that I say, what review show have you been watching?
Actually, when you look at the Posse Comitatus Act, it doesn't in fact apply to the whole military. It only concerns the Army and the Navy. The other branches, being the Marines, Air Force, and Coast Guard, can be used on American soil. That's why embassies and the White House are guarded by Marines. It may also be why in Stargate SG-1, the Air Force is in charge of the Stargate project.
So, we have to ask, what branch of the military does G.I. Joe fall under?
Keeping in mind, there's no such thing as just one G.I. Joe team, since the comic, cartoon, and toy versions are all in their own continuities.
Truth be told, in all three cases, they may not be part of any branch.
If you look at the lineup, you've got members of the Army, Navy, Marines, and even the Coast Guard in there. To say nothing of the British SAS guy. Hell, if you look at the cartoons, you've got guys who aren't even in the military. Quick Kick was a stuntman they found right after he did work on a commercial, and they let him just tag along. Scoop was a journalist, though Sergeant Slaughter did say he'd officially sign him up on the spot. And let's not even get into Shipwreck, who they found in a desert, just being shipwreck. Couple all that with an Air Force pilot flying a Navy jet, and an Army sergeant giving orders to an Air Force captain. Yeah, trust me, going into the G.I. Joe's rank structure would be a video in of itself. You can see where things could get confusing.
So, maybe we should look into who's in charge of the Joe team.
After all, if the leadership is of one particular branch, maybe they all fall under that one. Well, in the toy line, General Hawk is the highest authority, and he's Army. Yeah, he went to West Point. Even though in the cartoon he served on a Navy ship, go figure. But that's the toy line. There really wasn't a high demand for action figures of a bunch of paper-pushing bureaucrats in charge of the Joe team, now with triple filing action. In the cartoon, the team get their orders from a committee of high-ranking figures from several branches of the military, though sometimes they get called in on orders of the president himself, like when he needed an elite military team to fight an unarmed street gang. In the comic, they report to various generals over the years, including a cabal of interbranch shady officers known as the Jugglers, so no help there either.
Perhaps the simplest solution, and the one that all the evidence points to, is that G.I. Joe is, well, its own branch of the military, and as such is not bound by the Posse Comitatus Act in any way.
You've got team members and equipment pulled from every branch, with their own unique rank structure and rules. As an aside, when you look at the G.I. Joe toy line in other countries, this whole problem is solved in a different way. In Europe, for example, G.I. Joe is an international task force with members from many different countries. Dialtone, for example, is from Italy. They are more like NATO than anything else. Well, if NATO used ninjas. I can't find proof they ever did, though.
What? Oh no, I am not emailing NATO to ask if they have ninjas. Even I have my limits.
Anyway, in Europe, G.I. Joe seems to have an international mandate, much like in the cartoon and comics really, where they're seen operating in France, England, and several made-up countries. I mean, Wolcocogland, what is even the hell?
In conclusion, G.I. Joe is basically its own branch of the military. Maybe under mandate from NATO or the UN. And as such, it is perfectly legal.
I would almost compare them to the Avengers, really, who for a time worked under a UN mandate. Or, hell, even S.H.I.E.L.D. itself. Although their aircraft carrier can't fly. Unless you get like 4 or 5 kids to lift it up and pretend. Also, their version of Captain America makes my eyes hurt.
See you next time, everybody.
Breaking the law.